The morning light poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Meridian Hotel bridal suite in long, golden lines. The room smelled like fresh roses and something softer. Hope, maybe. My dress hung on the back of the closet door, ivory silk, fitted perfectly after months of adjustments. It was the kind of gown that makes you feel like your whole life has been building toward this exact moment. Behind me, my best friend, my maid of honor, was laughing about something I barely heard. The stylist kept reminding me, hold still. Just hold still. And I remember thinking, this is it. This is where everything begins. I was 29. I had a corner office at a marketing firm in downtown Chicago. I had savings I'd built slowly and deliberately since I was 22, after graduating debt-free because I refused to borrow what I couldn't repay. I had my own apartment, a car fully paid off, and a 5-year plan I was already ahead of. And I had Marcus. We'd met 3 years earlier at a rooftop fundraiser. I fell for him in that dangerous, deliberate way, when you're old enough to know exactly what you're risking and you do it anyway. What I didn't have, standing there at 7:15 that morning, was any idea that within a few hours, everything I thought I knew would unravel. Marcus and I had been together for just over 2.5 years when he proposed. It wasn't dramatic or unexpected. We had talked about it, really talked about it. Sitting across from each other with coffee, discussing finances, where we'd live, what marriage actually meant beyond the ceremony. Thought I was being careful. Thought I was being smart. I wasn't careful enough. His mother, Diane, because she insisted I use her first name, had always been kind. Warm even. She had that kind of presence that made people feel welcomed instantly. She laughed easily, touched your arm when she spoke, made you feel included. His sister, Renata, was different. Quieter. Observant. I used to think that was just her personality. Now I know she was watching. The first crack appeared at our engagement dinner, 7 months before the wedding. Marcus's family took us to a steakhouse in Naperville. Dark leather booths, low lighting, an expensive wine list no one really reads but everyone pretends to understand. Dinner was smooth. Too smooth. Then Renata turned to me and asked casually, "Do you plan to keep working after you have kids?" Sounded simple. Polite. But something in her tone wasn't. "Yes," I said without hesitation. "Of course." She smiled. Just smiled. And changed the subject. At the time I let it go. I told myself I was imagining things. I wasn't that I thought about that smile more than once in the months that followed. But every time I talked myself out of it. People ask awkward questions, I told myself. It doesn't mean anything. I kept moving forward. 14 months before the wedding I bought our house. A 4-bedroom Craftsman in Elmhurst. Big backyard. Original hardwood floors. A kitchen that had just been redone. Quartz countertops, double oven, the kind of space people gather in without being asked. The down payment was $220,000. I put in $190,000. Marcus put in $30,000. At the time it felt balanced enough. Close enough to ours. But I didn't leave it to assumptions. At Rachel's insistence, my friend, a real estate lawyer who does not believe in romantic shortcuts, we had a cohabitation agreement drafted. It laid everything out clearly, proportional equity. I owned 86.4%. Marcus owned the rest. Back then it felt like a technical detail. Just paperwork you sign, file away, and never think about again because you're busy planning a future together. Rachel told me to keep a copy somewhere safe. I kept 3. The wedding was set for 11 a.m. at the Blackstone estate, about 40 minutes from the hotel. People had come from everywhere. My mom flew in from Portland. My college roommate drove from Minneapolis. 67 guests made the trip. Some across the country, some just across town, to watch us stand up and promise each other forever. I knew every detail. Even the flowers, 1,200 stems of white ranunculus. I knew because I'd approved the invoice myself. Everything was planned, pounded for, controlled. Until 8:40 that morning. There was a knock at the bridal suite door. It was Renata. She walked in without waiting to be invited, like she already belonged there. Fully dressed. Perfect makeup. Carrying a small gift bag, she sat down without explanation. She looked at me in the mirror, really looked, while I sat there with half-finished hair. Then she turned to my mom and my maid of honor and said pleasantly that she'd like a few minutes alone with me. My mom started to object. I caught her eye and gave a small shake of my head. "It's fine," I said. "Just a few minutes." When the room cleared, Renata sat near the window, folded her hands and smiled. The same smile from the steakhouse. Patient. Controlled. Like she'd been waiting for this exact moment. She said she wanted to go over a few things before the ceremony. Nothing to worry about, she added quickly. Just making sure we're all aligned. Then she began. She explained that in their family, she emphasized the word, the women handled certain responsibilities. Her mother had always managed the extended family's finances. It wasn't just a task, she said. It was sacred. She talked about Sunday dinners. Non-negotiable. A tradition since childhood. Wives arrived early to help cook and stayed late to clean. That's just how it's always been done. Then she mentioned their mother's health. Nothing serious, she said, but enough that she needed help. And it had always been understood that when Marcus got married, his wife would take on part of that role. Not a burden, she clarified carefully. A contribution. I sat there still listening to every word. When she finished, I waited a moment before speaking. What exactly would that involve? I asked. She blinked. That wasn't the response she expected. Well, bookkeeping, grocery coordination, being available during the week if mom needs rides. I nodded slowly. Is any of this written down? I asked. Did Marcus and I agree to this at any point before today? That was the moment her expression changed. She hesitated just slightly before answering. These aren't things that need to be written down, she said. This is how family works. I thanked her. Told her I'd see her at the ceremony. She picked up the gift bag and left. I sat there for about 45 seconds after the door closed. Not moving. Not reacting. Just processing. My mom came back in first. She looked at my face and didn't ask a single question. She just placed her hand on my shoulder and squeezed once. It was enough. I asked for 10 minutes. When the room cleared again, I picked up my phone and called Rachel. She answered on the second ring. I told her everything. Exactly as it happened. No emotion, just facts. Rachel didn't interrupt. She never does. Because she understands something most people don't. It's not how something feels that matters first. It's what it actually means. When I finished explaining everything to Rachel, there was a pause. Then she asked, "Have you and Marcus talked about any of this?" "At all." "No," I said. Another pause. "Okay," she replied. "I'm getting in my car." Rachel lived about 20 minutes away. I knew she'd make it faster. I called Marcus next. He answered right away, already confused. "We both knew you're not supposed to talk on the morning of your wedding." That alone told him something was wrong. I didn't ease into it. "Renata came to see me," I said. Then I told him everything. Every word. Exactly how she said it. When I finished, I asked one simple question. "Did you know about this? And do you agree with it?" The silence that followed wasn't like Rachel's. Rachel's silence meant she was thinking. Marcus's silence meant he was choosing. Finally, he said, "My mom's been struggling. Renata was probably just trying to help you understand what we're walking into." I caught that immediately. I repeated. "What we're walking into. Does that mean you knew?" "Claire, it's our wedding day." "I know what day it is. Answer the question." He exhaled. "My family has traditions," he said. "I figured once you were part of it, things would fall into place." "Fall into place?" I asked. "I didn't want to make it a big deal," he added quickly. "They're not bad people. They just need time to adjust." "Adjust to what?" There was a beat. "To having you around," he said. "To how independent you are." And there was. "How independent you are." Not said with admiration. Said like a problem. Thanked him. Calmly. He said canceling the wedding was humiliating. That I was throwing something real away. I looked at him and said, "I'm not walking away from something real. I'm walking away from something that was never what it pretended to be." He called 3 more times that afternoon. His mother called twice. Renata sent one final message. "I hope you understand what you've done to this family." I read it once. Set my phone down. And poured myself a glass of wine on what was supposed to be my wedding day. The weeks after weren't easy. They never are. Marcus hired a lawyer. The letter came soon after. Carefully worded, suggesting that because we had lived together and he had contributed to mortgage payments, there might be grounds to revisit ownership. Rachel read it once and gave me a look that said everything. Then she responded. Her reply was precise. Calm. Unshakable. She cited the cohabitation agreement. The recorded deed. The exact ownership percentages. She attached a full breakdown of every mortgage payment made over 14 months, matched line by line with bank records showing exactly who paid what. Then she added, politely but firmly, that if they wanted to challenge it, they were welcome to take it to court, and that she would be fully prepared when they did. 10 days later we got their answer. They weren't pursuing it. I kept the house. And I want to be clear about what that means. I didn't settle. I didn't negotiate a percentage. I didn't compromise to make things easier. The agreement held. Exactly as it was written. Morning light poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Meridian Hotel suite, soft and golden, carrying the scent of fresh roses. It should have been the start of everything. Instead, it became the moment everything became clear. By 9:50 a.m., my mother had already spoken to both families. By 10:15, guests were being gently redirected to the hotel restaurant for an impromptu brunch the coordinator somehow pulled together in under half an hour. It was seamless, almost unreal. Meanwhile, my phone lit up nonstop. Marcus called 11 times, his mother 4, and Renata sent 3 messages that started with urgency and ended in silence. Rachel stayed with me as I changed out of the version of myself meant for the aisle and back into the woman who had walked into that hotel the night before. She didn't say much. He didn't need to. She just helped me pack, handed me water at the right moments, and stayed steady while everything else shifted. Marcus arrived at 11:30. I met him in the lobby, not the suite. I needed space. An exit. Hooked, broken. Not angry. Just undone. He said my name twice before he could form a sentence. Said he didn't know Renata would come that morning. Said he would have stopped her. Said he loved me, that none of this had to mean what I thought it did. I asked him one question. When were you going to tell me? He tried to deflect. I didn't let him. When were you going to tell me your family expected me to manage everything? Your mother's appointments, your finances, Sunday dinners. All of it. His answer came too easily. After the wedding. Things would have settled. That was the moment. After the wedding, I repeated. After the agreement was no longer protecting me? He went quiet. And I watched it happen. The realization that I understood everything. He said my lawyer's name like it explained it all. Then he tried honesty. Said he always knew his family was a lot. Said he believed I was strong enough to handle it. Said he thought I would adapt. Adapt. I turned that word over in my mind, slow and deliberate. I put $190,000 into that house, I said calmly. I didn't do that to adapt. He pushed back. Said it was our life together. Said we could revisit the agreement. No, I said. We're not revisiting anything. That's when his tone changed. Tighter. Sharper. He talked about the house like it was symbolic. Like his parents' emotional support counted as investment. Like walking away from the wedding was reckless. Embarrassing. I looked at him and realized something simple and final. I'm not walking away from something real, I said. I'm walking away from something that never was. He called 3 more times that day. His mother called twice. Renata sent one last message. I hope you understand what you've done to this family. I read it once, set my phone down, and poured a glass of wine on what was supposed to be my wedding day. The aftermath wasn't easy. It never is. Marcus hired a lawyer. They tried to challenge the agreement, claimed shared payments meant shared ownership. Rachel handled it. Calm, precise, relentless. She responded with documents, numbers, proof. Every dollar accounted for. Every clause enforced. 10 days later they backed down. I kept the house. Not part of it. Not a settlement. All of it. The agreement held exactly as it was written. Marcus's name came off the deed within 6 weeks. He moved into a small apartment. His mother told anyone who would listen that I had blindsided him. Renata disappeared from my world entirely. But none of that stayed with me the way one thing did. That silence on the phone. The moment before Marcus answered. The moment where everything he hadn't said finally showed itself. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if I'd walked down that aisle anyway. If I'd smiled, said the vows, signed the papers. I try to picture that life. The Sunday dinners. The quiet expectations. The slow erosion of who I was. Becoming smaller, piece by piece, until I fit into a role I never agreed to. I can't see it clearly. Maybe because some part of me already knew. My mother flew home 4 days later. At the airport she hugged me and said something I wrote down so I'd never forget it. The bravest thing you can do is refuse to become someone smaller than yourself. I kept the house. Kept my career. I kept Rachel. I kept my mother. And I kept the version of myself that asks questions before it's too late. Now I ask two things always. Is this written down? And did we agree to it? They're simple questions. But they reveal everything. The flowers, 1,200 white ranunculus, were donated to a hospital. Somewhere someone woke up to them without knowing the story behind them. That feels right. Not everything needs explanation to matter. These days I wake up in that house in Elmhurst. Morning light still pours through the windows. But now it smells like coffee. Like quiet. Like something that's entirely mine. And I think, this is it. This is where things begin. I was right about that part. Just wrong about the morning.